I'm going to do a few poems from my collection Parents Wanted. It's all in a name. Nicolette is my first name, spelt with a C-K. It was chosen by my brother, created, shaped, filtered into his brain from my grandfather's story, who was writing about an African girl called Nicola at the time. K. There was no other Nicolas I knew spelt with a K. Guess my mum wanted me to be different, open to originality. Living with her was different, not always easy. And my dad, well, he left when I was 3 months old. So Jane is my mum's first name. Kind of strange story where Skye came from. You see, my dad was on the run, a fugitive, jumped on a boat to the Isle of Skye and refused to let my mum get any form of contraception because he was too paranoid the authorities would trace them. No protection plus sex equals embryo. Me. Skye's not spelled with an E. Ask for the Y out of hippie, because I dropped it, of course. Hawkins is my father's surname, a name I've kept to remind me of what I achieved in spite of him. Wings from a hawk can soar for long stretches without flapping. K. Remember, my mum wanted me to be open to originality. It's from the shit that great things grow. Nicola, Skye, Jane, Hawkins. That's me, my full name. Skye now chosen for my first? Well, because it's different. Family portrait. Mum is stranded on the rocks, surrounded by drunken mermaids. And even though she knows it's wrong, she drinks down waves. Dad, well, he's on a boat, chasing the horizon. And how I always felt like a stolen bag of chips. I told her how I lived in a haunted house, how the fairies used to bring us gifts and the time foxes' heads tried to bite my feet at the end of the bed. She said, "Eee, that's mental, that like." I told her how my stepdad, well, Mum's boyfriend back then, used to cry in a shed in the backyard. It was a 70 thing, men finding their pain and all that. She said, "Eee, what a ranch packet." I told her how my bed was in the living room with no colour, few toys, how I lived off vegetable soup and always craved chips. She said, "Oh, bless your little cotton socks." I told her how the house I lived in was split into flats, how my best friend Laura back then was called a half-caste, and how the woman up the road was a lesbian with a partner called Leslie, and how I fancied their son Ben. She said, "Eee, no wonder you're so PC." I told her how me and Laura run wild around the streets coming home at dusk, and when we were thirsty we drank water from puddles. She said, "Eee, no way." I told her how when I was 5, my mum forgot my birthday, and when she remembered, she bought us a double cake from the Magic Roundabout, and how I cut off the face and gave it to that boy Ben. He must have proper fancied him, mind. I told her how when the social worker came with his long grey arms, he said, "Your mother's in hospital, you'll have to come with us." I was in the classroom at the time making a grey fluffy mouse. "Ee, how old were you then, pet?" I told her how I loved the crackle of the flames when the newspaper was held up to the fireplace, how we didn't always have a TV, and how she left the Christmas tree up until April, and how I hated the bareness. And once when my real dad visited, and how he was drunk, and how I fed him crumpets. The rubbery texture of raw crumpet. And how my mum cried when she was drunk, and how I watched Simon spite my stepdad over her. And the time she cut raw sprouts, I saw black worms crawl out, and my puppy called Smutty, who was taken away, and how I used to dream about finding him. And once when Laura came round, all that was in the fridge was mouldy cheese, and I would sleep in my mum's bed and have nightmares about Daleks. But when I lived in different families, I couldn't be happy, because all I wanted was skirts. I was always on the outskirts because their mother's skirts weren't skirt enough to hide behind. Children's Home, Part 1. Carl said, "Let's go pinch clothes off the washing line." Laughing, I was like, "Yeah, right." Of course I went along. You're not part of it, you're out of it. So we went skipping through summer's dark, ducking, diving, grabbing, laughing, trying to find family's clothes to replace the ones we didn't have. We jumped over fences, sneaked round corners, laughed our hearts out when we saw Carl appear with a sheepskin rug. We were like, what the fuck do you want with that? Didn't matter. We just wanted to grab anything, fill the empty fucking hole. The cupboard for supper time wasn't open for a good few hours yet, so like a tornado we twisted around in a swirl of stolen clothes. It was fantastic. For one night, we didn't give a fuck. Laughed, dived, ducked, scrubbed out the chalk lines of abuse that were often scrawled on the pavement outside the home. Funny, you'd think I'd remember what they wrote, but I don't.